I'm starting to wonder, by the time we're done, how much of this is going to feel like it was Kamala's story. Ms. Marvel, episode 5. We've only got one more to go after this. And I think it's pretty telling that when I pointed out in my last review that this was only 6 episodes long, a lot of folks in the comments were kind of surprised. They hadn't realized that. And I do have to wonder if that has influenced in some way the reception to this. Because, like, if I'm being honest, if this was a 20, 12, even a 10 episode length show, my concerns about pacing and structure that I had in the last video, and I'm going to have again now, would not be as prevalent. They'd probably still be there a little, but they wouldn't worry me as much because I wouldn't feel like you're eating up time on what is supposed to be her show in stuff that she is barely involved in. And I mean, I something that I feel like, to be fair, a commenter pointed this out. I didn't realize it, and then once they said it, I was like, you're right. Like, I think it says a lot that the show has completely dropped the visual gimmick of moving animated work, whether it was from Kamala's notebook or the chalkboard or the graffiti. Like, that was a neat visual hook, and it tied into her nature as a fangirl and a little bit of an artist. When was the last time that showed up? It feels kind of indicative of the fact that this show has just moved further and further away from her. And again, in something longer, I wouldn't worry as much because it could just be a case of, well, we're fleshing this out to then do something with her. But, like, there's only one episode left. What are you going to do with only one episode left? And while I won't know for certain until next week, it really does leave this, I think, more than any of the other Disney Plus shows at this point, looking like it exists for no reason other than to cover an origin story of somebody who's going to show up in a movie. This doesn't feel like it is a showcase for Kamala. It feels like a lore dump at this point. It didn't start out feeling that way, but it quickly devolved into it. And I mean, we'll wait and see if what the head of the clandestine, what she did at the end, and what it seemed to cause something in Cameron, and like we'll see how that pans out. But as of right now, if what we saw is effectively accurate and she's now just dead, the quickness of the turn, I'm leaving my son behind, I have it pointed out to me by someone who I don't like and don't trust that I left him behind. I will now sacrifice myself for him. That's some quick yo-yoing back and forth. And there's no catharsis even in her, like, dying as a villain, because she's a pretty weak villain. She wants to go home. Okay. Why? Like, that's the thing. It reminds me of kind of what frustrated me about The Hand in what the various Marvel Netflix, the Defenders especially, but also in Daredevil. Like, the whole thing, The Hand was trying to reach. I can't think of the name. The place where Danny Rand got his powers. My brain is going Kamar-Taj, but I'm like, no, that's Doctor Strange. And I can't remember what it is right now. But in any case, they were trying to reach out, but it's never really established why. Or it's barely established. Like, there's this sense of that's how they'll obtain their immortality. But if all they're trying to do is continue to live forever, why is that such a big deal? Like, they're established to not be good people, but what's the damage of them actually going? And more to the point, like, they seem to be doing fine where they are. They were a very poorly motivated group. And here, it's even more so because we meet what is, I guess, Kamala's great-grandmother, who was a clandestine and chose to stay. So clearly they're capable of finding a way to exist here. The others are just choosing to not do it and not knowing enough about the place they came from and why they have the need to go back, just going, we want to get back home. Why? Like, I'm not saying that's no motivation, but that's a limp motivation without context for it. We don't get it. And as far as the bulk of this episode being taken up in a flashback on Kamala's family centered around partition, it's not a bad idea in and of itself. And I'll reiterate what I said last time. That image of how packed those trains were is a very powerful image. I'll give praise to that all day long. However, again, in a 6-episode series, this is not a good use of your time. To make a comparison, and I want to be really clear, I'm about to make a comparison to a couple of shows that dealt with a different historical detail relating to a different ethnic group. Now, I'm not comparing the actual real-life events of partition and what I'm about to talk about. I'm comparing the narrative used structurally in other shows that did something similar to this, where I think it worked at least better. So both, in the HBO shows, both Lovecraft Country and Watchmen, they touch on the Tulsa Race Massacre. And while I am kind of the opinion that Watchmen did it a bit better, they also did it a little less directly. Like, it is there, but it serves more as something firmly established. We see glimpses of it, but we see a bit more of the fallout of the impact of that on a specific character who we know, not some past history person who we're just meeting. So there's that. And then, but Lovecraft Country, which is a show I had very complicated and mixed feelings about, but it did something structurally very similar to what this episode is doing, of putting the audience and also a number of characters directly into this historical event, real-life historical event that was culturally traumatizing to an entire massive group and generations worth of people. And the difference is, Lovecraft Country was 10 episodes long, episodes about an hour apiece. They had the space to take an episode and do that. Ms. Marvel is 6 episodes long, 40 minutes apiece, except not really, because the credits run about 6 minutes. So it's more like 33, 34 minutes. I don't understand why, given as little time as they have, that this is the story that they chose to tell, and this was the way they chose to tell it. And I'm increasingly frustrated because at the time of this recording, I've now read more of the original comic run. Not a ton, to be fair. I'm still in the early days of it, but one of the things I appreciate about that original comic run is that Kamala is a street-level hero, kind of in the vein of Spider-Man, with Spider-Man being Manhattan and Queens-based, because he works in Manhattan, lives in Queens. Kamala being Jersey City-based, and she's dealing with, yes, outlandish comic book-related stuff, including a mega gator and a giant talking parakeet kind of looking thing. But within that context, these things are wrapped up in lower street-level stuff that most of the bigger superheroes aren't ever going to deal with, because it's not on their radar, but it's on hers, because it's on her home turf and she cares. That to me says a lot about her as a person and her priorities and her commitment to her own community. And that becomes one more thing that gets lost and not properly communicated when the story you choose to tell with her on her initial outing is one in which she gets wrapped up in forces that are part of a bigger picture that she doesn't really fully understand, and they kind of drag her along for the ride. I don't know whether this plot line they're doing here, it has an analogous in later issues of her comic that I just haven't read. They might. But even if they do, they came later. They came after establishing who she is as a hero, why she does what she does, the way she goes about it, and what she cares about and her priorities. And a really good way to establish that was establishing she's looking out for these missing teenager cases that nobody else is going after. But here, you wrapped her up in this big grand story that it feels like she's just a small part, or she's a continued part of a legacy. And I'm learning this greater context and not nearly as much about her. A bit like how I complained about the power change and what was lost with the way the powers are being depicted, this is even bigger as far as I'm concerned. This is a more direct, we are losing something about how the story was told before. And I'm not saying you have to do it exactly the same. I don't think the inventor would have worked particularly well in a cartoon. Sorry, it's not a cartoon. In a TV series. I don't think that actually the inventor would have worked in a cartoon, but in live action, no, he probably wouldn't have worked as a villain. But the feel and the heart of those early stories is not here past the first episode, maybe the first two. It's frustrating because I'm seeing some people in the comments say that they don't think that Kamala is particularly well performed. And I disagree with that. I think the actress is very good. The problem is the character is not being given the chance to shine the way she's supposed to. It's another case where I'm getting frustrated by a lot of entertainment lately. And I think I hinted that I was going to in the last video. I'm definitely going to, and soon, do a video about how the way Disney is approaching these additional materials and the interconnectedness of the MCU at this point, especially with the streaming shows, is actively hurting the storytelling. This is becoming a problem, and I think right now, granted, one episode left to go, to be fair, but to be honest, I don't see how they're going to completely turn around the pacing issues and the fact that Kamala's been taking a back seat in one episode. I don't see that happening. Even if in the last episode she is the full proper focus and she takes center stage and she feels like she delivers on what's been missing up to this point, that still means they dropped the ball up until the last episode. There's still a problem here, even if the next episode is great, and I hope that it is. But the character deserves better than what she's getting. She deserved more than 6 episodes. Maybe she deserved more than 1 season. I don't care how you want to go about it. But this feels obligatory. This feels like we don't want to make origin story movies anymore. So let's relegate some of this stuff to the TV series so it's out of the way when we put these characters in movies. Whether that's actually what's going on, I don't know. But that's what it feels like. And Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, this version of Ms. Marvel, is a breakout and beloved character for a reason. She's really good. And she's better than they're giving her. At this point, I'm just going, I hope she gets proper full center stage focus, since they seem to have, at the very least by appearances, more or less wrapped up the story of the clandestine, and they're theoretically now going to get her back to Jersey City. With those things done, hopefully we can get back to what the first episode was, which is a sense of her and her immediate surroundings, not dumping her in the middle of a place where, yes, she has family there, but that's not her. Showing us her in Pakistan doesn't tell us that much about her, because that world is kind of alien to her. And when the show spends more time showing us that world rather than her interactions with it, we're learning way more about elements that are kind of a part of her, but we're not learning all that much directly about her. We're not getting her to know her as well as we should have. And the character deserves better. I think the actress deserves better. This hasn't been given the resources and the space it needs. And again, I don't know what happened first. I don't know if the story was pitched and they were told you have 6 episodes to do it, or if they were told you have 6 episodes and this was the story they chose to do. Somebody dropped the ball. Either whoever decided how many episodes they get didn't give them as many as they were going to need to tell the story properly, or the people behind what story was picked, if the episode count was set first, they went too big and too international. And I can appreciate wanting to get to the root in the heart of her cultural heritage, given that it is something that we haven't seen from superheroes, or the MCU in particular, definitely. But at the same time, you still have to tell a good story about this character. And I can appreciate the importance of the cultural representation and the historical. I get it, but it's harming the story. It's making it less impactful, less compelling. And it's bugging me. We'll see how things are with the last episode. Again, I hope it's amazing. Even if it is, my complaints about the last 2 episodes and a chunk of episode 3 as well, those will stand regardless. I will stand by those complaints, no matter what. But if they can nail this ending, that will make a difference. It won't erase my complaints, but it will make me go, okay, at least at the end you got your focus right. We'll see. What were your thoughts on episode 5 of Ms. Marvel? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon is how you pay the, well, it's not how you pay the bills. It's how I pay my bills, and it's how you can help me pay my bills. My words are today. I think it's the heat, honestly. But even if you can't assist me that way, like, share, subscribe, help me out as well. But don't worry too much about it. Take a relaxed attitude around here so you can just come on back next time you need a break. Now my thanks to my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullo, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Udelki, Theotha Boyd, Bernabilax the Poodle, Zach, Idolin, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Bookworm, Adam, RDL Taylor, Shane Ross, Jay Gorley, Brendan LaRose, and TT. If you want to hear me possibly butcher your name, check out the rewards on the Patreon. And thanks to all you folks.